Okay, now let's try to secure Angular app with Okta login page so that users can log in and log out from our Angular app. So let me try to create a new Angular app and then implement Angular Okta SDK. So I'm going to use Angular CLI to create a new Angular app so that it will create all the ready-made files to get started. So I'm going to use ng new Okta sample app. So it will take a while to create all the necessary files. I'm going to put yes for Angular routing and I'm going to use CSS here. So this is trying to create all the required files necessary. So Angular app is created with all the required files to get started. Now let's go ahead and implement Angular Okta SDK. Okay, now I can just Google this Okta Angular SDK npm JS. You can just go ahead and click on first link. This is the SDK what we are going to use to implement what's required. We have a getting started, installation procedure, and a usage here. I'm going to use the same tutorial to implement what's required. As we just created an Angular app, let's test this app first. I'm trying to ng serve. So it's compiled successfully. Let's try to run this on localhost 4200. So app is successfully running. So let me go ahead and change this. Everything from this application to app component. Let me put this in H1. Let's try that. But it's still loading. You can see the icon going on top. So it says you are an app component now. So let me go ahead and create a new a dashboard component here. And generate C for a component. I'm going to give the directory name right here. Component is going to be the directory name, right? ng is Angular CLI command, followed by g is generate c is component, and components is the folder that I'm going to create a new file, right? Dashboard. I'm going to create a dashboard component. If you click on hit enter, that will create a component, HTML file, CSS file, spec file, followed by a TS file. So once you go there, we have HTML. You can see a dashboard works. I'm also going to implement routing. As this is not a tutorial with Angular, I'm just trying to move it so fast. So I'll just implement routing and put an endpoint URL like a resource path / dashboard, which gets you to this dashboard HTML page. Yeah, I just added a route called dashboard, which takes you to dashboard component, which in turn will give you a dashboard HTML. But in order to make this work, we have to put a router outlet in app.component.html. So let's go there and put a router outlet here. Let's test this app now. Okay, app is running. Let's go there and see. So as we don't have in the home page, we just have only router outlet that is trying to display in the web page. But if you go to dashboard endpoint, you should see dashboard HTML, dashboard works. Now let's include steps from Angular SDK. So installation is where we get started. Installation getting started is just like developer.okta.com. We just have gone through all these things already. So I'm going to install the same thing, Okta Angular, on our Angular application. The package was installed. Okta Angular package was installed. So let's go to the next step. I'm going to import this thing into module app.module.ts. We are trying to import Okta config, Okta auth module from Okta Angular, the package what we just installed. So let's go to package.js, app.module.js. The next step is adding Okta config. I'm adding Okta config in the same place. We have to put our domain here. And how to find a domain? We already saw that the domain will be in under developer console, and this is the domain. In the organization URL we have a domain here. We can just copy that and paste it here. And this is the issuer is the authorization server that we are going to use as default. Client ID, we can get client ID from, I'm going to use classic UI again. Let's go to applications and test tab. This is the client ID what we required. Go to general, client ID right here. I'm going to paste this as it is. Similarly, we are going to use 4200 as our port. We already put redirect URA, and this redirect URA should match with this redirect URAs, either one of them. So let's go to next step. Okta Auth module. We have to import this Okta Auth module here and also put providers here. I'm going to import Okta Auth module first. As we just added providers, let's go to the next step. Okta config. This is Okta config is nothing but the config what we just added, and it is trying to explain what it is. So if you want, you can just go ahead and read what it is. There are some optional parameters as well. So next thing is Okta Auth module. It comes with Okta Auth callback component followed by redirect component and Okta service as well. So we don't have to import all these things explicitly, but we can import Okta Auth module at top layer followed by Okta Auth. And here is where we are trying to protect our endpoint, right? If we want an endpoint to be protected, we have to put a can activate with Okta Auth on it, right? Let me try to create a protected endpoint first, right? I want to protect a component or a endpoint URL. I'm going to consider it as details. So let me create a new component called details and protect it. ng generate component, again components followed by details. I'm trying to create a details component which should be secured. I want dashboard to be viewed by everybody but not details. So let's go ahead and create it. Okay, details component is available now. Let's go ahead and put routing to it as well. We have detail works here, and I want to put personal details followed by secured. Let me go to app.module.ts. Let me put another path. This is details path, and that should go to details component. Let me try to run this again. Okay, our app compiled successfully. Let's go ahead and check details component. Currently, the root component is not working because it has only router outlet. And let's go to dashboard. Dashboard is working fine. Let's go to details. Details is working fine too. But we found a simple problem here. The root component is showing nothing, which might confuse users. So let's redirect a root component to dashboard so that whenever root component is hit, it will redirect to dashboard so that users will see dashboard by default. And I'm going to do that with path. This is the root component. If nothing is given, that is the root component. So I'm going to redirect it to dashboard. And path match should be full. And order of routes matters for sure. So I'm going to put this after dashboard. It's trying to compile. Let's test it now. I'm going to put root here. That is redirect to dashboard by default. This is what is required. Now let's go ahead and secure the details endpoint. As anybody can see details now, I want to secure this details endpoint so that whenever users hit details endpoint, a login page should appear so they can see only if logged in. If not, they should not see. So let's go to this OKTA-angular SDK and follow the process. So we are trying to use Okta Auth to implement that login page. Basically, this is the service which gives you login page whenever it is secured. right? So I'm going to put this Okta guard in app.module.ts followed by can activate on details component. Why? Because that is my protected component. So now this component details component will be protected successfully. Let's go to the next step here. Okta callback component. So whenever app calls Okta, Okta will respond with some tokens, and that has to be handled by this callback component. So let me try to import it and put a path for it as well. So I just added Okta callback component. Let's go to the next step. So it says to put us in Okta callback component in declarations, but if we put auth module in here, Okta auth module, we don't have to put it here. So I'm just keeping that thing. And redirect component, we have to put a path for redirect component for sure. So whenever user tries to hit this details component, it will redirect to login page. This is what we are trying to configure here. So let me put this Okta login redirect component as well. Yep, I just added Okta login redirect component as well. Let's go to the next step. The next step is using a custom login page. Here I'm not looking for any custom login page. Instead, I want Okta login page to be interrupted whenever users are trying to hit the secured URL. So I'm going to skip this custom login page step, and I'm going to go with Okta app service. The reason I'm going with Okta service is because we should have some logout button. So without this service, we can log out actually. So that is the reason I'm trying to use it. But I don't need login. Why? Because whenever I hit secured endpoint, that will redirect to login page by default. So I'm not looking for any login button, but instead I'm looking for logout button. So that has to be put under app component. I'm going to put the same thing in app component here. So once I copied it, you can see the error Okta service. The reason is because I didn't import it, so I'm trying to import it by default. Now you can see the import by default. Of course, there are some outdated statements within this documentation. What we are just trying to follow. I'll just give you all the updates here. So instead of this authenticated state, we have a solution here says that's authentication state. That's we have to change that thing. And one more thing is it says a colon expected. The reason is because this statement is trying to return a promise, whereas this is a boolean value. So in order to resolve this issue, what we have to do is we have to cut this from the constructor and put it under ng on init. We don't have ng on init, so let's try to implement it. Implements on init. Once you implement it, you have to also add the implemented methods, that is ng on init method. That has to go after the constructor, but let's add the statements first. So these are the statements which I took out of the constructor and put in ng on init. I'm just going to delete this and put after the constructor. There will be no return type, followed by await is something has to be here because this is returning a promise, and it has to be only asynchronous method use these promises. So that resolves the issue. And as we are not using any login, we can just remove login here, and logout should always redirect to /login, and this route login redirects to Okta redirect login component as we just saw in app.module.ts when we go to login. So this is where when you log out, this is where it redirects to, right? It redirects to /login. That route comes to Okta redirect component. So looks like we are done with most of the piece. Let's go here and see what is it. Is authenticated. I'm just okay. I'm just trying to resolve the issues. So we are done with all the changes as far as I know. So let's go to the next step if we have any. I think we don't need all those things, and that is pretty much what we have. So currently, let's go to app and let's test it. When you hit root path, that should redirect to dashboard, and it is redirecting to dashboard. When you hit details page, that should interrupt with Okta login page. Let's check that. The reason is because it's already logged in. The reason is because I'm logged in here in this case. In the second tab, I'm already logged in. That is the reason it went to the detailed page and put a logout button there. Ideally, this logout button should be at the top level. It should not be under the details. So let's try to change it if we can. Yep. So as we don't need logout for dashboard, we don't need it. So details is like secured endpoint. So we need logout here. So we can just log out from here or here. I'm trying to log out from this app what we just created. Click on logout. That will take you to Okta login page. So this is what we are trying to do. So let's me try to hit localhost 4200 dashboard. That should not be or the root folder, right? So if I hit a root folder, that should redirect to a dashboard component, which is not secured. So dashboard works. But if I try to put details here, that should not allow me. Cool, that's not allowing. I need a login here to access the details page. So once I click on sign in, that will take you to details or details part with logout button. Then you can access the personal details as secured. Now go ahead and click on logout. So that's how you implement authentication and authorization, right? You are authenticating user and also you're authorizing some URLs to be secured. Thank you. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial.